For more, let's go to New York City. Bernard Harcourt is professor of law and the head of the Center for Contemporary Critical Thought at Columbia University. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Good to be here. Good to see you.
There would be a precedent. No U.S. president has ever been criminally indicted before. No former U.S. president either. Are we expecting that soon?
In part, remember, because of a pardon, right? Nixon probably would have been indicted had it not been for the pardon of Ford. But it's true. This would be unprecedented. This would be the first. And I think that the implications are going to be that it's going to pretty much be a stress test for Trump's grip on the Republican Party.
Well, you heard that clip there. The Speaker of the House of Representatives seems squarely behind the former president.
Right. In terms of a stress test right now, it's pretty clear that Trump's got a grip and he's getting everybody to line up. In fact, today, even the Governor DeSantis down in Florida lined up as well and gave a statement supporting Donald Trump with a bit of a jab at the same time. But it's clear that everybody is pretty much kind of is defending him on the Republican side.
What do you think about the pace of justice? People watching around the world, they thought after the storming of the Capitol that the former U.S. president would be in the crosshairs of the law much sooner than now.
Right. Well, the pace of justice is slow. There's no doubt about that, particularly with complicated federal investigations, particularly on January 6th. This investigation was in a way delayed or slowed down because of the transition at the district attorney's office to Bragg from Vance previously, and the transition of power and then questions about whether to pursue it or not. So it's been, since 2016, there's actually a statute of limitations for 5 years, which would be he'd have to go over the statute of limitations. So there are some legal complications in the fact that it's a state prosecution. But these things do take a lot of time. You got to present evidence to the grand jury. And the result is that it's often a number of years before an indictment comes down.
How's U.S. democracy doing? Because there's this feeling that justice is not blind, say Republicans.
Well, I mean, when we start talking about big issues like democracy, I think it's important to take a step back and remember that, if the United States were a robust or real democracy, Trump wouldn't even have been elected president. Remember, Hillary Clinton won by by about 3 million votes, about 2% of the vote. So you've got certain institutions like the Senate, the Electoral College, and whatnot that kind of create, more of an aristocracy of red rural states, really. But even if we want to think about it from the perspective of democracy, I think it's important to understand that you can play by any rules, really, when you're trying to run for president, and that's what President Trump is doing. Former President Trump is doing right now.
And you have precedents where presidential candidates in the U.S., I'm thinking most notably of Eugene Debs a century ago, a socialist candidate, ran from jail.
Right. There is something about the fact that, Trump is playing on this kind of winner versus loser dimension, which has a real appeal for a lot of Americans. He's kind of a street fighter, right? He's prepared to do anything to win, and he's prepared to do anything in the world not to be a loser. And he lost the last election. So, I think there's a side of American voters who like that kind of relentlessness and willingness to kind of go as far as you possibly can. And Donald Trump is someone who does that all the time.
And just to be clear for our viewers, he's claiming he's going to be arrested. Of course, you can be criminally indicted without being handcuffed.
Correct. Well, he would have to surrender. He would have to surrender if there's an indictment and go through a process and appear before a judge. and generally be booked and photographed, etc. He doesn't necessarily have to be handcuffed. It'll be interesting to see whether whether they'll do that or not. But he does have to surrender to justice, which is effectively a form of being arrested. You know, there's a voluntariness to it. Effectively, he'll be taken into custody for the purposes of a hearing to determine whether or not, and of course he will be set free.
All right, so maybe a perp walk, maybe not. Bernard Harcourt, many thanks for joining. Many thanks for joining us from New York City.
Thanks for being here.